welcome our final speaker, Dawn Elyzabeth. Dawn has been a keynote speaker that inspires audiences all over the world, as well as appearing on dozens of television, radio, and podcast shows. As a business consultant, Dawn has worked with numerous companies to help them work through the challenges of unmotivated employees, sales fluctuation, and a lack of teamwork and/or leadership within an organization, ultimately helping organizations strengthen performance, productivity, and profits. Dawn's clients include local mom-and-pop businesses to Fortune 500 companies, along with clients who have been featured on The Today Show, Fox, CBS, ABC, NBC, and MSNBC. Let's welcome Dawn Elyzabeth to NAGW.
Hello, good afternoon. We're small but mighty, right? Yeah. Good, I like it. I never know when we're at the end of a conference how to really feel about being the last speaker of the day. Is it the idea that save the best for last? Yeah. Or is it more about, you know what, let's just put Dawn at the end? But the one thing I do know is the people who stay to the end of the conference are the most amazing people at that conference. Give yourselves a round of applause. You are here to soak up every piece of information all the way to the very end. So congratulations. Have you had a great conference this week? Are your brains starting to hurt? Yeah, a little bit, right? We're going to make this a little bit lighter for our last hour together, just to kind of relieve some of that pain on our brains. When you get back to your offices next week, when you get back and you have different information to put into place, all the different technology, would you agree you also have to deal with the other people there? Yeah. Get those individuals to get on board with everything you're excited about from this conference. Get them to agree with the changes. Maybe even put in a little bit of money if need be. So what we're going to talk about is how to deal with those individuals to help you make it easier for yourselves to get them to work along with you. First, we're going to look at what intrapreneurship is as an umbrella, but then we're going to focus down on one piece, because technically we could be here another 4 days on intrapreneurship. Who wants to stick around? Didn't think so. I got one hand. Woohoo! So we're going to look at one piece that will help you immediately when you get back into your office with the other individuals within the workplace. Would that be all right? All right, so when we talk about intrapreneurship, how many people have heard of the word intrapreneur? We got a few. How many people have heard of entrepreneur? So most likely you understand the concept then of what an intrapreneur is. You maybe just not have heard of the word before. So the word has actually been added into the Webster Dictionary back in 1979, but intrapreneurs have been amongst history, and they will continue to be amongst corporations. The difference is now, in the past about 10 years, we started to understand what an intrapreneur is, even if we haven't put a name to it. An intrapreneur is an individual who is excited about the success of a company that they work for. They're excited about the success of the individuals around them. They're excited to help build that organization. Your entire conference this week has been about intrapreneurism, but you just didn't have the name to it. You're getting a lot of information of how to improve your organization, how to improve the department that you work with, how to improve everything around you in your work environment. The idea is, though, your attitude and actions you take when you get back, whether that you become an intrapreneur or the mindset of an employee. The mindset of an employee would be, you know what, I work for the government, let them make the decisions. That's not in my job description, even though I could fix that, I'm not going to, I'll let somebody else do it. On the flip side, an intrapreneur is an individual who thinks about what they can do to help their work environment improve, help the company improve. Even if it's not necessarily within your job description, but you know it will help improve your job in the long run, as well as those around you and the company itself. So when we go back with our technology, all the data that we've learned, all the different tools that we have, we can continue to fix those tools, change those tools in improve those tools. The great thing about technology is it listens to us. It does what we want. What about the people you work with? Do they do what you want? Change when you want them to change? So the piece that we're going to focus on today under the umbrella of intrapreneurship is what we call the communication puzzle. I used to work with this lady who I would get to work about an hour and a half early so that I can get work done when she wasn't around, and I would hope for an hour and a half, please don't show up today, please don't show up today, please don't show up today. And then I would hear her down the hall walking in. How many people feel my pain? You have somebody that you work with, and you don't have to raise your hand if they're here, so they don't know about it. But we have different individuals that we don't necessarily mesh with in the workplace. When we need to get them on board with a project, it's like pulling teeth. When we have to ask them for a favor, they don't want to do it, or they just don't do it. So we're going to talk about the communication puzzle in order to look at how we can interact with these individuals a little bit easier to get them to be fixed, to change them. Now the one thing is, and people hate when I say this, is we can't change other people. Would you agree? Who's the one person we can change? Ourselves. We can choose how to interact with those individuals to help influence them to want to make a change on their end. And that's where the communication puzzle comes in. There's two parts to it. The first part is the golden rule. How many people have heard of the golden rule, the original one? 25% of the communication puzzle is the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. We learned this back in the day in the sandbox, helped us play with other individuals. But as we got older and we get into the work sandbox, that changes a little bit. It doesn't always work. Anyone that we interact with, whether we just met them or we've known them for years, the golden rule doesn't always work. Recently, I was on a flight. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was flying up to Seattle to work with a company up there. And getting on the flight, I brought all my bags with me. I'm rolling down the aisle. And when I get to where my row is, the two gentlemen were already sitting in the aisle seat and the middle seat, and I had to get to the window seat. So I put my bag up on the top, and I look at the gentleman in the aisle seat, he was around 50, I would say, a little bit heavier set, had a whole bunch of stuff on his lap, a lot of paperwork and a computer, and I felt really bad to say, I'm in the window. He quietly jumps up, grabs all his stuff, gets out of the way, and moves for me, so I'm ready to get in. And I look at the kid in the middle, about 23, and he looks at me and goes, "You want to jump over?" Luckily, it was an aisle with some extra leg room, so I was able to squeeze by and get into my seat. As I started shifting around, getting myself set, ready for the actual flight, I put my bag underneath. I pull out my iPhone, I pull out my headphones, because one thing you might want to know about me when I travel is this is the time for me. I like to take that time to listen to books on tape, to listen to music, to relax, to kind of think. And so I'm getting my iPhone out, I'm plugging in my headset, and as I grab my earphones to put them into my ears to start listening to the book I had on tape, the kid in the middle says, "Hi, I'm Jay. What's your name?" I'm just staring at the headphones. All I want to do is listen to the headphones. And in that scenario, I can make a choice. I had to choose on the communication puzzle. Am I going to follow the golden rule, treat Jay the way I want to be treated, or upgrade to the platinum rule? Has anybody heard of the platinum rule? The platinum rule takes the golden rule to a new level. It's treat others the way they want to be treated in order to get more out of them in the long run. This is 75% of the puzzle. And we're going to talk about why it's 25 and 75% in just a minute. What we're going to first do, though, is look at that golden rule. The way we want to be treated. What do we want in the workplace? How many people have done like a personality test before? The disc, or the colors, or the animals, or the shapes. Okay, great. We've somewhere along the line most likely have done one. And we're going to kind of look at that in a different scenario. We're going to look at directions, north, south, east, and west. We're going to see, as I talk about the different directions, I want you to think about what direction you're from. Are you from the north, the south, the east, or the west? There'll be a quiz in a minute, so be ready. North individuals are those individuals who love to make the decisions. They're all work. They're focused on getting that job done. If they have to do it by themselves, they're going to do it in order to get it done and get it done right. They want to make sure that that goal is reached, and it's reached perfectly. On the flip side, south individuals are supporters, are team builders. They're individuals who like to work with others and collaborate. They get along with other individuals a lot easier. They like to make sure they're working together with everybody as opposed to doing the work on their own. And they make sure that everybody has what they need along the way. An east individual is our creator. Someone who's thinking outside the box, comes up with lots of different solutions for a problem. They have all these, kind of like an inventor. They're doing different projects all the time. They have different ideas. They want to implement all these different ideas. Even if a project is already 3 months in the works, they're coming up with some brand new ideas. And our west individuals are our analyzers. They love the data, the facts. They think before they speak. They really think and formulate their thoughts before they present it out to other individuals. So as we look at these 4 areas, can you start to see where you might be, what direction you might be from? How many people think they're from the north? You feel, yep, I'm from the north. It's okay, let us know. How many people think, yep, I'm from the south. I'm the southerner. Who's from the east? East side. Who's from the west? Who didn't raise their hand? Oh, we got a few. As we look at these, you might have felt like, you know what, I'm a little bit of one, a little bit of the other. That happens. There's one area, though, that you fall into naturally, where you are from the beginning. It's kind of where you are as a child, where you are as somebody in the office with other individuals around you. So thinking about where you are is really important to know your basis of your golden rule before you can even upgrade to the platinum rule. So that's why as we talk about this, I want you to really think about where you might fall. Because when we look at the platinum rule, we want to think about other individuals that we work with. So I want you to take a second and think of at least one individual that you work with that you don't quite get along with all the time. Take a second, think about them. If you need to jot it down, most likely they're already ingrained in your brain. You were hoping you didn't have to think about them at all this week. I want you to think about that person, and we're going to look at where they might fall, north, south, east, or west, and see how that relates to ourselves to learn how to communicate with them the way they need to be communicated with so that we can get them to collaborate easier with us. So thinking about that individual, north, south, east, or west. We talked a little bit about it, but let me give you some tools to help you separate this out a little bit easier, really focus in on where they might belong. One division is north and west individuals are very work focused. When they're at work, it's about the work. We're doing the work and we're talking about work, and all we are doing is working. A lot of north and west individuals might work through lunch. They might eat lunch at their desk because they're working. Their workspace is all work. Do we see the commonality there? On the flip side, our south and east individuals are more people-based, social. They like to talk about things outside of the office. They like to talk about family, about activities. Their workspace might have pictures, might have certificates up, things that don't necessarily have to do with just work. A lot of south individuals will have candy at their desk so people will come in and talk to them while they get candy. They're the ones who know about other individuals' families, children, what they're doing outside the office. So you can start to focus in where people might fall that you work with, in what direction they come from. Another separation is north and east individuals are more extroverts. They love the spotlight. They want to be heard. They're the individuals that in a meeting, they're shouting out. They're giving their opinion. They're saying what's on their mind. They're very natural presenters. They like to be in that spotlight. And on the flip side, South and West individuals prefer to sit back and be quiet, let others speak up. They'll speak up one-on-one, but in a group setting, they're the ones who sit back and observe and watch and listen, as opposed to be the ones talking out. Can you start to see where these individuals might be placed that you were thinking of? Or for yourself, if you didn't raise your hand earlier, where you might fall into a little bit easier? So thinking about the North, South, East, and West individuals, I just want to see if there's any questions that you might have to this point, either for yourself or starting to place individuals in different areas. So we can talk about how to communicate with these individuals easier, the way they want to be communicated with. Any questions that you might have? I know I threw you off asking questions now, right? You guys are like, wait, we're not ready for it.
Yeah, is that North, South, East, West? Is it true for every situation, or does it kind of change given on a certain situation, a certain combination of individuals?
So the question is that you're wondering if this is the same for all scenarios? Yes. You can start to place people in these different areas, even yourself, very easily and quickly the more you're aware of it. So as you become self-aware of you, you can start to become aware of other individuals where they might fall. And everybody has a natural area they fall into, a natural direction that they fall to. Any other questions? So let's look at how to put the platinum rule into play. When we're talking about the platinum rule, we are communicating with others the way they want to be communicated with. So almost like, for example, if I'm an East individual, how can I step into the shoes of a North individual in order to communicate with them better? Have you ever met somebody, maybe here at the conference, or that you met and you thought, wow, they're awesome. They get me. They're your new best friend. You click like that. And on the flip side, have you ever met somebody that you just didn't like? Just rubbed you the wrong way from the second they started speaking. The people that you get along with like that are individuals most likely from the same direction as you. Individuals that rub you the wrong way are most likely from one of the other three. And the more they rub you the wrong way, most likely they're the opposite direction as you. North and South are very opposite, and East and West are very opposite. Now in relationships, opposites work great. In the workforce, all it does is creates friction. So how can you step into their shoes, into their direction, and start communicating with them the way they need to be communicated with? The more you can slip into their shoes, build that trust and respect, you're going to get them to start collaborating with you easier. And they're going to start communicating with you the way you need to be communicated with, because you took that first step. So let's take a look at some of the dislikes of these individuals. A North individual dislikes indecision, dislikes chit-chat, dislikes sensitivity, feelings. It's not about the work. All they want is the work, work, work. It's about the work and then the work. Nothing else, no fluffiness. One good example is if you were to ask a North individual for a favor and you walked in and said, hey, I just wanted to talk to you about a couple things. A North individual has just shut you out. They are done listening to you because you're not getting to the point. You want to stay focused in on the work, the question at hand, or the task at hand, so that they are willing to collaborate easier with you because you've stepped into their shoes. On the flip side, a South individual dislikes conflict. They dislike working by themselves. And they also dislike bullying or people who are overpowering. They want to make sure that everybody is getting along. They like to work together. So if you're not from that South area and you need to talk to somebody about a task at hand, it's not the idea of go do this task. It's the idea of let's do this task. Let's do it together. in order to get them to collaborate with you easier, to listen to what you have to say because you understand them from the direction they're coming from. This one manager that I worked with in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I live, one manager that I worked with, she said to me, wow, I wish I knew this 3 days ago when I worked at that company. And I asked her why. And she said, I realize I'm a North individual. She goes, I get that. I understand that. I'm proud of it. I got it. 3 days ago, I received a 3-page email where all the person had to do was write one question, and it was at the bottom of the email. She felt as though it was a waste of time to go through this entire email to get to the one question. So what she had done 3 days prior was she got the answer that she needed to get, emailed the person back in one sentence, because that's all she felt she needed to do. The person who wrote the 3-page email, we realized, was from the South. She knew that to her, all that other information was relevant because she's more people-based. She talked about all the different people on the project, how it affects every other person, and then she asked her question thinking that that was what the other person needed to hear. The person from the South wrote an email as though the golden rule, the way the email she would want to receive. And the person who responded to that email as a North individual the way she wanted to be responded to. And for those full 3 days, they were in conflict back and forth because they were both trying to utilize the golden rule to communicate with each other, and all it did was create a conflict. If either of them knew, they could start to step in the other person's footsteps. It might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but it can have that collaboration happen a lot easier. So she was able to go beyond afterwards and fix that scenario because she knew now that she was from the North and this individual was from the South. East individuals dislike anything that's not fun. They're the ones talking about happy hour. They're the ones finding out when we can go to lunch. They want it to be fun, exciting. They don't like the facts and figures. They know they're important, but they don't like them. They don't like to be bored. They want challenges. They're individuals who sometimes I like to talk about ADD, because their mind's all over the place. It's not so much ADD, it's just that they have so many things going through their mind, they need to get them out. Being aware of that, you could utilize that. When you're looking for solutions, who do you go to? Who can you interact with? Who should you ask? They like to find those solutions out. And on the flip side, a West individual dislikes no facts. They dislike for themselves being late. What's that rule? If you're on time, you're late. I think a West individual came up with that one. They hate laziness. They love to stay focused on their work and get it done early. And they would like other people around them to do the same thing. They're also very schedule-oriented. So if you were to go into their office and ask them for a favor, it's most likely not a good idea to just stop them in their tracks and have them go to a new thought, but make an appointment for a future time where you can now talk to them about a different thought. They have time to gather their data, their information, and have a conversation with you about it and be focused in on it. It doesn't feel too crazy because they're not being stopped in their tracks. There was a different lady that I worked with in San Diego, and she was a manager of 5 male individuals, and she is from the West. She realized she's from the West. She works through lunch, she's always focused on the work, and she never understood why her employees were always laughing and telling jokes and enjoying themselves, and she wanted them to focus. Once she realized that they were opposites, that helped her look at the platinum rule. Step into their footsteps, step into their shoes, and start interacting a little bit more like they do, communicate with them a little bit easier. So after her and I had chatted, the next day she decided the 5 individuals, they go to lunch into the cafeteria area and they have lunch every day. And she sits in her office with her Tupperware and she eats while she's working. So the next day she decided, you know what, I'm gonna go have lunch with them. So she went into the cafeteria at their lunch hour and they looked at her and was like, what are you doing here? What's wrong? What do we do? Because it was out of the norm, right? She was trying to step into their footsteps, but because it was so abrupt, they didn't know how to take it. Once she explained to them that she understood the differences between them and she wanted to make that change, they started collaborating with her a lot easier. She found days where they decided to stay in for lunch. There are days that she found them going, you know what guys, we need to focus in on work. Let's tell that story later. And she was amazed to see the change in her employees because of the steps she took to communicate with them the way they wanted to be communicated with. I have a fun one that I want to share with you. Company parties. You can start to really tell individuals where they might fall when you have a company party. At the company party, North individuals are attending to the food, the drinks, even if it's not at their house. They're the ones who, if the chicken wings are gone, they're in the kitchen trying to find the chicken wings to fill up that bowl again. They're the ones that if the booze are out, they're collecting money from everybody to get someone to go to the store and buy more booze. They are on it for a success of that party. The South individuals on the flip side are attending to the people. Are you comfortable? Are you having a good time? Do we have the food that you like? What can I do to make you more comfortable? They're making sure everybody is doing well. Our East individuals are the ones telling the stories. They're the life of the party. They're the one who are there with the gathering around them and they're just story after story, joke after joke. While the West individuals are observing. If they show up, they're observing. They're watching. And Monday morning or the next work day, they know everything that you've done and said. And they have it categorized, ready to use if they need to, because they're the ones who are sitting back. They're the ones watching what's going on. So thinking about the different individuals, how you can start categorizing them into North, South, East, or West. Looking at how to interact with them a little bit more. Are there any questions that you have? I like it. I like when there's no questions. You guys are all saving them till the end though, aren't you? Yeah.
People can adapt in situations become around the spectrum.
Do you think people can adapt around the spectrum, north, south, east, west? Yes. As individuals become more self-aware, yes, they can start to adapt, depending on the other people around them and the situation that they're in. There was one gentleman that I had worked with at a company. He had said, a lot of times when I go into an organization, what we do is we look at this a little bit more in depth and we actually move around the room and we sit with our like-minded individuals, our north, south, east, and west. They get moved around the room. And in that scenario, what we do is each group gets a problem to solve. The same problem. And it's really interesting to see that the Norths solve that problem one way. The Souths solve that problem, same problem, a different way. The East solved that problem another way, and the West solved that problem a whole different way. It's very interesting to see the process the different directions go through to get to a goal or to get a task completed. And this one individual had said to me, he fell into the South. And he had said, you know, this is interesting because if you asked me to do this 10 years ago, he said, I think I would have been a North. And the reason was because the people he worked with currently were more South individuals. And he had to adapt into that scenario. Although he's very natural as a North, he has to adapt in the workplace for the individuals he works with. So the more we take on those actions to become self-aware and then start adapting to the people around us, we kind of become that chameleon. We kind of meld into any direction a little bit easier. Now the adjacent one's directions for you is a lot easier to meld into. It's your opposite that's the hardest. North to south, south to north, east to west, west to east are the hardest to adapt to because they're furthest away on the spectrum. But you always have that one area you fall back into as an individual. And the people we work with, the same thing. I like to look at it like if a crisis comes up at work, Think of something happens, a problem arises. We don't have time to think. We fall back into our natural direction in order to solve that problem. A north individual will jump in, take charge, and get it done. A south individual will jump in with other people, make sure everybody's doing okay and everybody has what they need. An east individual is throwing out ideas, one after the other after the other. Hey, how about this? Hey, how about this? Hey, how about this? Waiting for someone to take it on. And the west individual is looking at the idea of, how has it been done before? What is the process that's already in place? Follow the process. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So we do have the natural area we fall into, but we can adapt, become that chameleon over time or around different individuals. Any other questions?
One of the questions associated with that is, do you think it's a positive or a negative to be able to meld into different roles? Like the elite you are, and then there's the idea of...
Dance party. I would say it's a positive as long as you're utilizing it at the right times. Knowing when to be you and when to be your individual is very important. When we're dealing with the other people at our workplace, in order to get them to collaborate and communicate with us and actually hear what we have to say, listen to what we have to say, do as we ask of them in different tasks, we want to be able to meld into what direction they're from in order to get them to move to where we need them to go, to get them to start to collaborate. Did I see another hand back there? Or am I just pointing you out? Just pointing you out? All right. So one thing I always get is people always ask me, what direction am I? Where does Dawn fall? What's Dawn's natural? What do you guys think? Who thinks the north? Got like 3 hands. Who thinks the south? I got 1. Who thinks the east? Oh, got a lot of east. Who thinks the west? Not so much. You guys think the east because of the hair, right? It's the hair, I know it.
It's cool hair.
Thank you. The area that I fall into very naturally is the north. Oh yeah, I'm a north individual. This is where I fall. When I first learned this about myself, I kind of thought back in history. Think about for yourself where you fall and how that's affected different relationships, different tasks that you had to do, different goals you had to reach. One really early memory is in 6th grade. I was put into a group of 4 in order to get a project done. And it was myself, my best friend, who at the time we were fighting, so we weren't talking, the class clown, who most likely falls into the east direction, and then a girl that I didn't even know her name. I don't remember what it is. She never talked to anybody. We were in a group together. And as a north individual, what did I need to do? I need to get it done. And I needed to get it done right, and I needed to get an A. So what did I do? Do it myself. The whole project, I did the entire project. And when we had to present the project, do you remember those big foam boards? I don't know if they still, I made 3 different visuals, and I gave each one a visual to hold. So I could present the project. Because it was not going to get screwed up. And I started thinking about that throughout time, the different relationships, different scenarios where being a north individual didn't behoove me. The golden rule did not work out too well. Where if I had upgraded to the platinum rule, there could be a little bit easier communication happening, collaboration happening. And one of the biggest relationships in my life was with my mom. This is my mom. Hi, Mom. She's a south individual. Growing up, we did not understand each other ever. I was all about work and tasks. She was all about family, relationships. She's an individual who takes care of everybody on her side of the family and everybody on my dad's side of the family. I don't know how she has time for herself. I think, hello, I'm north, take care of myself, right? I grew up on the East Coast. As soon as I graduated college in 2000, I came right to the West Coast, moved right to Las Vegas, Nevada. I missed the water by a little bit, but that's all right. And I moved for 2 reasons. One, because the weather was way better than upstate New York. And 2, It was 2,000 miles away from my mom. I thought distance is bliss. It got worse. She wanted to know all the time what was going on, what was happening, where was I, what was I doing, who are my friends. I'm sitting there thinking, Mom, I'm an individual. I can do this on my own. And she wanted me to call her every Sunday, every holiday, tell her what was going on. Yeah, I got some, what? I didn't understand it. If a holiday fell on a Saturday, what am I going to talk about on Sunday? I mean, we have Instagram to tell you what I ate this morning. I didn't know what to talk to her about. But once I became self-aware of the North individual that I was and how she fell into the South area, it was up to me at that point to make the decision. Do I want to continue with the golden rule and treat her the way I want to be treated? Or step up to the platinum rule and meet her where she's at. Treat her the way she wants to be treated. So I started treating her the way she wanted to be treated. Up until this point, nothing else was working. All we did was fight. All she did was cry over conversations. So I decided to step into her shoes. Every holiday, every weekend, I'm calling. As I travel around the world, I'm telling her where I'm going, what the dates are, what hotel I'm at. It was stressful for me to give all this information out. But I started doing it. And this past year, I missed a really big holiday. Because I called every holiday. I call on Labor Day, I call on Memorial Day, I call on Arbor Day, National Ice Cream Day in July I called. But I missed a really big holiday this past year. And I woke up the next morning thinking, oh my God, I forgot a holiday. I can't believe I didn't call my mother yesterday. She's gonna freak out. What am I gonna do? I didn't know what that conversation was gonna be like. So the first thing I did was I texted my dad and said, I forgot to call Mom. Is she okay? And I get back, you're right, you forgot, call her. As soon as I can gather myself, I was ready. I picked up the phone, I called, I dialed, and the very first thing I said was, I am so sorry I missed yesterday. And I just waited. And what I heard on the other line was, that's okay, I know you're busy. Really? So all the efforts I've put in are now starting to pay off. Instead of her being really upset and crying on the other end, she understood where I was coming from. She knew that I was focused on work. She understood it. Even though she doesn't understand north, south, east, or west, she understood the changes that were being made and the collaboration is starting to happen. So think about what you can do with those individuals to step into their shoes to build that trust and respect so that they start to move where you need them to go. So that they start to collaborate with you the way you need them to collaborate with. Would you agree it's a little more work up front? Absolutely. But it's worth it in the long run. I recently went back to New York City for work with a company that I was working out there. And I decided I'm going to be in the same state as my mother. I should probably let her know. So I called her up and I told her that I was coming into New York. And after that conversation, 30 minutes later, I got 2 emails. Her and my dad's flight information and her hotel information. She was excited that I gave her that information. Maybe a little much, but she was excited. And she came and visited, which was great. I got to see her on a separate time that I didn't normally get to see her. We're starting to collaborate a lot easier because of the steps I took at the beginning. So remember I was telling you on the plane, I met that individual. As I was on the plane, Jay, the middle seat, as I scrunched past him, I was sitting there with my headphones and I had to make the decision. Do I follow the golden rule and put the earphones in and ignore him? Or do I follow the platinum rule and have a conversation with him? I chose the platinum rule. I answered his questions for about 10 minutes. He asked me about who I was, what I did. He introduced me. He said the other guy's name is Tom, but he doesn't talk very much. And as I'm answering his questions, I asked him what he did. He looks at the headphones and says, if you want to listen to your headphones, I won't be offended. Go right ahead. So I said, thanks, Jay. And I put my headphones in. I had an hour-and-a-half flight of peace and quiet when I noticed that because Tom didn't offer the same platinum rule to Jay, Jay continued to try to have conversations with him the entire flight. So I had peace throughout that whole flight because of the 10 minutes I put in of the platinum rule with Jay. And at the end of the flight, when I finally took out my earphones, he handed me his card and said, "I hope we can do business in the future." And it was a 10-minute conversation. So earlier today, I know that they're talking about the idea of being able to network with everybody, being able to interact with individuals, because as a collective whole, you can get more done at work. So think about when you're interacting with the different individuals, are you going to network the way you need to be communicated with, or the way that other individual needs to be communicated with? Think about what you can do to step into their shoes. Any final thoughts or questions that you might have in regard to the communication puzzle?
What do you do?
Ooh, we love these ones. I need a chair. Give me a chair.
What do you do when it's the same wing, the same, it's west? They're west, but they're having to be a north. And you run into conflicts because of that. How do you address that? They're basically like you, but you know, I feel like you have a dominant and a recessive.
Yes.
And how do you sort of accommodate that?
Yeah, so for example, my dominant would be north, and my recessive is east. That's where I'd fall. So even though you guys all picked west, did you see that? I don't know. So think about, you want to watch and observe where they're coming from at that moment. If they're coming from the north at that moment, those are the shoes you want to put on. If they're coming from the west, those are the shoes you want to put on. The more you observe first before interacting and reacting, it's going to be a lot easier to know what you should be doing or saying in that scenario to get them to collaborate easier instead of having a conflict arise. Any other questions? You guys are like, we're so ready to be done. My head just hurts. So real quickly, I just want to let you know that I do have a postcard on all the different tables. If you do want any more information, my information is on there. You're more than welcome to email me if you have a question, or check out the website to get more information. I also do fly all around the world to go to different companies and work with different departments to get them to understand each other a lot easier, so it's a lot easier to work with individuals. There is one very interesting scenario I had. A couple years ago, I worked with this department where we did this. We looked at north, south, east, and west, and we spread out in the room like I said I usually do. And when they spread out, they realized that they were utilizing strengths of individuals that wasn't their strength. So for example, north individuals who like to take charge and get things done and delegate, they were asking people from a different direction to have that role. They also noticed that they had brainstorming sessions, and they were not asking the east individuals to be a part of the brainstorming session, they were asking other individuals in the brainstorming session. So before I had come in, and the reason why I was asked to come in was because that department, all they did was fight and never got anything done, and it was affecting the rest of the company. And so what had happened was, after they had this discovery of themselves and each other, they took it upon themselves, I just stepped back, to start redelegating the roles, finding out the strengths from each direction and utilizing those from those individuals. Different tasks were divvied out, and they started to pick and choose what they wanted to work on, and it was almost immediate that the company started seeing a difference, because they were self-aware and they were now aware of each other. They were able to utilize the platinum rule to work well together and be able to get things done. And it started to spread out throughout the company, because when you have one negative situation, would you agree it could be like a cancer that just spreads around? And so being able to become self-aware and get started on what you can do to put yourself into their shoes to get them to communicate, follow that platinum rule, is step one. The next step is to help them become self-aware so that they can do the same thing as you. So I do have that flyer. If you want to take it and want to ask me any questions, you're more than welcome to. But thank you. The end of your conference. My last word is now.
Thank you.